What's something someone told you while drunk you wish they hadn't? Story 1. That he was in love with a 17-year-old girl, and he had been since he had met her at 12 years old. Guy was closing in on 40. This is the kind of stuff you don't tell your bartender. Story 2. I was at a bar and was chatting with this married couple I'd just met that night. We'd both been drinking a fair bit, but the wife was probably the most drunk. At one point, this guy walks in and comes and sits with us as he apparently knows them. Shortly after, the wife and I go up to the bar to get another round of drinks, and she says to me, "Well, this is awkward. My husband is sitting next to the guy I'm cheating on him with. Why would you say this to someone you just met?" Story 3. My girlfriend told me while she was inebriated that we were together, but not really together. That was the end of that relationship. Story 4. My uncle shot my granddad when he was 5 years old. Dad told me drunk. My uncle has always been the most miserable, cold person. And it was at that moment I realized why. Insane situation I wish I didn't know about. Edit. This was in the UK, not America, for people asking. Yes, he died, and I'm fairly sure it must have been an accident. Story 5. My first Christmas dinner with my in-laws. My wife's grandmother, completely sober, rattled off who in the family had killed their spouse, and with what weapons, double-barreled shotgun being the most popular, but run over by truck coming in close second because of the plausibility that it was an accident. My wife was mortified and turned all shades of red. I was fascinated. Welcome to the family. It was in rural Northeast Georgia, to answer the inevitable question. Story 6. My now ex-girlfriend told me while we were having sex that she fucked another guy the night before. Story 7. My mother seduced my dad at a Halloween party so she could have me as a baby to replace the baby she aborted. It's like what you tell adopted children to cheer them up. She chose to keep you. Count yourself lucky. Story 8. When I was 9 or 10, my dad woke me up in the middle of the night. He was sitting at the foot of my bed and he'd had a few. He was a single father. My mom died when I was very young and my siblings all moved out. When he noticed I was awake, he just looked at me and said, "You know, I just want you to know that my life would have been so much easier if you were never born." Then he got up and left the room. Lol. Edit. Thanks, everyone, for the heartfelt concern. To just provide a blanket response, this was my reply for someone on this thread, and I just wanted to put it here for both the "screw that guy" and "how are you now, folks." Nah. Revenge isn't all that great. Why keep the cycle going when it doesn't have to? The thing I learned from growing up with a parent like that, and there's lots more stories to tell, lol, is that some people are just lashing out because there's something deep and fundamentally wrong inside of them. You can either let it be contagious and infect you, or you can kill that monster with kindness and empathy. Everyone deals differently, but it's worked for me, lol. I hope you all have a great day and genuinely hope everyone here can take whatever trauma they've been through and use it as a catalyst to help others. Story 9. A coworker once confessed they were cheating on their husband with a colleague, who was also a friend. Her son was my best friend of some 10 years. Her husband was my boss. The person she was cheating with once saved my life in a sticky situation. That was not very fun. Story 10. Last year I went to a concert with my then girlfriend and some friends. One couple had to cancel at the last minute, so my brother and one of my girlfriend's co-workers came along. Her co-worker, married with kids, seems to have some projection issues when she's been drinking. She started telling me about the various people in their work social circle who cheated on their partners, then told my girlfriend that she wanted to fuck my engaged, then, now married brother. It made meeting more of their co-workers the next weekend much more awkward for me. Story 11. I am the king of being told by drunken friends, co-workers, "I used to be so into you or attracted to you." And it's always someone that I had a massive crush on at the time they said they were into me. So many missed opportunities. Story 12. Was out drinking with an older relative who told me a story about accidentally killing a kid while serving in a war. Pretty fucked up story. I could tell it was really weighing on his conscience even 50 plus years later. Story 13. We were sat in a pub in Barnsley, West Yorkshire, after a night on the beer. It was me, a work colleague or friend, his manager and a mutual friend. It's about 11 p.m., and we're talking about heading out home, and my mate's manager pipes up. When I go away on work trips, I get a whore to come to my hotel and do it up her arse. We looked at him, unsure what to say, and he continued, if it's within about an hour of here, it's always the same one. No one had been talking about women, sex, prostitutes, or even working away from home or staying in hotels. No one knew what to say. The words up the arse still kind of echoing around everyone's mind. I think one of us asked how much, and I'm sure he replied 40 pounds. It was about 20 years ago, but even then this would have been cheap. That was it. It finished the conversation, and it led to the inevitable virtual knee slaps and I'd better be going from everyone. I saw him again occasionally, and of course my mate carried on working with him, but it was never mentioned again. But me and Dave did often laugh about it for many years afterwards. Story 14. Someone told me once that they boinked their sibling, almost in a bragging manner. They didn't remember saying anything about it the next day, so I didn't bring it up again. We haven't spoken in a long time. My best friend made a similar confession when we were teens. I just kinda shrugged it off, hoping he wouldn't bring it up again. Then we got drunk one night. We're still teenagers, so can't really handle it. And he just breaks. Tells me about how his father would make him and his sister do things. His confident way of talking about it the first time was him trying to cope with the terrible situation his only adult role model was putting him in. All that being said, I hope your buddy is doing okay now. He probably isn't a terrible person. Story 15. Me and a friend were bar hopping, and she started going on a rant about how the age of consent is to protect little girls from creepy men. So there's no reason it should be used against women having sex with boys. She continued that if it wasn't for prison, she'd have sex with boys as young as would have her. She's in her mid-50s. The whole time I was thinking, wow, I see now why the age of consent laws go both ways. Story 16. I spent 2 years with a woman in my mid-20s, and she was the most incredible woman I've ever met. I think the time I was with her, I was the best version of myself. She broke up with me and then moved to Australia and found a new partner. I don't know what happened after that. I deliberately lost contact with her so I could move on. Years later, by this point I'm married and have a family. I bump into her in a bar in the city I live in back at home, not Australia, and have a couple of drinks and catch up. She's got a family now as well, and she tells me when she leaves that I'm the love of her life and always will be. Story 17. I was in earshot, but it was not told directly to me. My mom had a little to drink this Thanksgiving and tried to whisper to my brother that he was her favorite. My brother was upset by it too, and we called her out on it. Not that it does much good. She has dementia and I do a lot for her, but she still hates me quite often, unfortunately. Story 18. My girlfriend once drunkenly told me about her ex's large penis. I'd be lying if I said I haven't thought about it every day since. Story 19. A former buddy back in high school got plastered and called to tell me he had molested his younger cousin, then went on a month-long mission to stalk me or hack my accounts and take revenge in the case I told anyone, which I absolutely did. What the F? Anyway, he's in prison now. Story 20. An older buddy of mine told me he and all his friends had run to enlist after 9/11s, and that he'd pressured them all to do it. He ended up being turned away over a medical issue while they all went over to Afghanistan and died. That's why he had changed from a fit, clean-cut kid into the overweight, melancholic alcoholic he was. We were out at a playground late at night, and I'll never forget it. I made the mistake of telling him it wasn't his fault, and he picked me up by my collar and gave me a look of such rage that I thought he'd deck me for sure. Then he sagged and let me go. I guess some weights are as hard to put down as they are to bear. He made me swear never to tell, and I haven't. He was one of my hometown's favorite people, someone who was warm and kind to his very center, and he was truly beloved despite his addiction. He died a couple years back in a car crash while drunk, on his way home from playing Santa for the kids. Story 21. Went out for drinks with a girlfriend. When I picked her up, she was hammered drunk. Anyway, she couldn't stop talking about the bartender. He had the same exact hairstyle as me, the same beard, dressed similar, same kind of demeanor. The difference was that he was extremely attractive. I said something like, "Sounds like a cool dude," she said. "He's just like you, only he's actually hot. If I could, I would fuck him tonight. Here's the deal, folks. I have no problem accepting that I am freakishly ugly. It's been a running joke in our relationship about a -4 getting with an 8, but hearing her say that kind of stung differently. I've thought about that night at least once a week since then, and it was 5 years ago." Story 22. A former buddy of mine asked me how much I would charge him to kill his baby mama. He mistook a prior mercenary career as something that I'd entertain. And funny enough, 3 people over the course of my life have actually inquired about that. Fucking nuts. Story 23. My cousin is unhappily married to his wife of for years, and damn near every time I'm hanging out with him, he informs me that he and his wife are fighting. Anyways, one night we were grilling and having some drinks, and he told me that his wife had put her hands on him violently and that he kicked down his front door shortly thereafter because she had locked him outside of his house. We went from hanging out every weekend to maybe seeing each other once a month after I found that out. It's obvious they aren't going to divorce and are both playing a never-ending game to see who can make the other more miserable, and it's just exhausting being around a couple like that. I am dating his wife's friend, which is the only reason I ever see them anymore. Story 24. My drunk or high baby daddy let slip that he had stabbed a guy for drugs or money, or both. Guy lived. I brought it up sometime later, and he said, "I told you that." X was a time bomb and passed away in a profoundly tragic way a few years ago. Story 25. After being estranged from my immediate family for a decade and reconnecting for a few years, I was a bit down and annoyed one night, and after a few drinks, texted my wife. "I wish my family would leave me alone. I never should have reconnected with any of them." Only I sent it to my mom. I tried to edit the text, but her nosy nature got the better of her, and she reverted it to see what I said. Awkward doesn't begin to describe it. Coincidentally, she was the reason for the text in the first place. Story 26. Got absolutely hammered and told me he was no longer attracted to his partner, mother of his child, thinks he is only into black girls, and that he was afraid to tell me because I have divorced parents, and that he was just going to ride it out. His partner does everything for him. Like, absolutely everything for him. He totally takes her for granted. And it's been a source of tension between us for a while now on my end, because I didn't want to see him fuck a good thing up and just assumed he was being a man-child, which is like, that's a fixable problem. Now I don't even know what to say to him. All I said was that if they split up while his daughter is still a toddler, it will minimize the damage. If he just rides it out, it increases the likelihood that he leaves at a worse time, that he cheats, or that he just teaches his daughter that being miserable in your relationship is normal. He then said, "Yeah, but like, I don't want her to wind up like you." Ah, yes, like a well-adjusted dude who supported his mother and younger sibling after his dad abandoned his family, had to find his own role models and learn everything on his own, has become successful and prides himself in always being there for the people he cares about who care about him, to the degree that I'm listening to his wasted ass at 3 a.m. on my vacation, and is the godfather to his child. To be clear, this is not his first divorce only happens to certain people kind of ignorant comment. The next day he didn't remember what he said, and I live 6 months out of the year on another continent, so I've just kind of let it slide. But this is friendship ending, I think. But he was hammered, grew up extremely coddled in a wealthy-to-parent home, and has no idea what he's even fucking talking about. So yeah, trying to let it go. Not sure if I will or can though, unfortunately. Edit. Not to mention the whole only being into a certain race thing is not awesome, but that's kind of a secondary issue. That's all for now. Thanks for listening to Digital Apathy.